Hello and welcome back to the One Take Show podcast. In this episode, we are in conversation with Miss Debolina Saha Narayanan. Ma'am is the founder of Internship Bank and she has a cross-jurisdictional experience with law. She's worked in top law firms across the countries in different jurisdictions. And in this episode, we talk about a very intense but a very important topic. We talk about how we as an industry can make our workplaces safer for legal interns, especially the female interns. I think a month back, an incident surfaced where female interns in a particular law firm were subjected to inappropriate messages, unwarranted advancements, and I think it is important for us as an industry to have these difficult conversations, especially when it comes to the safety of interns, female interns, in legal spheres. There are many aspects attached to it, and as it turns out, ma'am herself has been dealing with a similar issue and she brings a very important, very interesting, very unique perspective to the conversation, which I am sure you will love. But before we start with the conversation, please consider this as a trigger warning. Please do not continue with this conversation if you have any problem, any issue, any sensitivity towards sexual harassment or any other issue that surrounds this issue. And if you have any problem, please do not continue watching this video. And if you want to watch it at your own discretion, watch it at your own volition. With that, if you can, please do watch this conversation. It is very important, extremely imperative for anyone to understand, and especially for the law students to imbibe this information and to bring this to light. So if you like this episode, make sure you like, share and subscribe to the channel. If you have any suggestions or feedbacks, write them down in the comment section. I would love to read them. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's start the podcast.
You want something, go get it. Period.
2 and 1, we're recording. Hello ma'am, welcome to the One Take Show. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I, as a law student who's followed your career, and I obviously is in awe of your achievements and of all the multiple wonderful things that you've done, and something that you're currently doing for all the law students, and the kind of precedent that it sets for everyone in the legal fraternity to recognize and also to assimilate. I'm really grateful to have this opportunity. Thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure is all mine, Kaustav. I know we've been planning this for months and we finally made time to do this session on a very important topic, which I'm sure you'll introduce to the audience soon. Pleasure is all mine and I'm really excited about this.
Absolutely. And as we talk about this theme of this conversation, especially because of the recent developments that have somehow thrown light on this issue that I believe needs a very rampant and a regular conversation about. But I think there is a tradition that I follow on this podcast is I ask my guests about their experience with law, because I believe that there's so much that we can learn and draw inspiration out of your own personal experience. And quite unique to your experience is that you've had an experience of cross-jurisdictional law. And it's very interesting to learn more about. So could you please tell me what was your experience perhaps with law in the initial stages, and how did it grow with time?
Absolutely. Now, before I go into any detail, Kaustav, I basically have always followed two very important principles that I felt were important to me and which have been responsible for triggering my career, my course of life. First principle being never put yourself into a box, meaning don't limit yourself, be flexible. Did I think when I was in NUJS that, one day I would be working in London, a few years later I would be working in Hong Kong, and now I'm in the US visiting my husband? Absolutely not. I came from a very middle class family, first generation lawyer. In fact, we avoided lawyers, because the big secret, because we thought it was trouble knowing lawyers. So what I'm trying to tell you is that for students, many of whom you are first generation professionals, know it is possible. I, of course, belong to NUJS, but when I studied in NUJS was still building its brand name. I was the second batch of NUJS. So trust me, I didn't even have the brand name to bag on or tag on. So what I want to tell you is that it is possible. So firstly, don't ever put yourself in a box, be flexible. I did want a career in corporate law, but at the same time, and even till today, I am open to new ideas, new challenges at every possible front. And I think that's another reason for me to have started Internship Bank and struck a chord with so many of you. So don't put yourself in a box. That's the first thing. The second thing is never judge your own self and your own ability. And by that, I mean is don't reject yourself for opportunities. Most often, Costa, what happens is, we have a certain image about what it takes to, say, be a magic circle lawyer, what it takes to make it through a top tier law firm in India. And we for ourselves decide that, hey, maybe we are not good enough. And we do not even apply for it. We are so scared of hearing the word no that many of us don't even apply for it. I mean, imagine I sat for my Ashurst interview when I was just 9 months into the profession, 9 months out of college. There were so many. I think I was the youngest interviewee for an associate position at Ashurst, at least amongst the many other seniors who I knew had sat for the very same interview. Was it foolishness on my part to sit for an interview where I stood 99% of chance to be rejected? I don't know about that. But the way I looked upon it is that I still had that 1% chance to succeed. I mean, of course, 99%, odds were against me. I didn't have an LLM to begin with. I didn't even have work experience. I didn't even have a college brand name to support me. I had, honestly speaking, nothing except for my 9 months of very junior level experience in capital markets. But the most important thing I did was, looking back, the most important thing I did was I didn't let naysayers' decision and judgment affect my desire to just put myself out there, and hear the word no from them. The way I looked upon it is that it would be another chance to meet some wonderful new people, get used to the accent. In fact, it was my first ever video conference. I'm a dinosaur. So during that time, video conferences were not very were not at all, done, in fact, So I still remember looking at myself more on the screen because your little image of yourself appears. I was wondering, hey, am I looking all right if I'm speaking all right? So it was daunting. I will not say it wasn't daunting, but what I've done and what's really worked for me, and I'm sure it'll work for many, many of you, is don't judge yourself before someone else judges you. So if you let the job offerer reject you, and don't be afraid of rejection. I mean, what will happen at the most is you will still be in the same position that you were. You can't be worse off, right? So don't rule yourself out of opportunities. Let it come from the internship offerer. Let it come from the job offerer. So yes, so these are the two principles that I absolutely stand by even to this day. And yes, I started off, I did my education in NUJS, moved on to work with Amarchand Mangaldas. I'm a very ambitious person, in the sense I don't get satisfied with any result, no matter how good it is at any point in my life. I feel there is so much to learn, even at my age. And I will continue learning, and there is no stoppage to that. And that's what took me from Amarchand to Ashurst. From Ashurst thereafter, a couple of years experience in India. I came back to India for some time, worked again in top-tier law firm. And then I went back to A&O, Allen & Overy in Hong Kong. Again, I was flexible there. I was desperately trying to go back to London, Allen & Overy in London. I didn't make it through. See, I tried to get into Allen & Overy, and I'm telling this out to you, all of you, without any shame. I tried for 3 long years. 3 long years. I stopped counting the number of times I applied, the number of times I was told, nah, not this time, better luck next time. And so I get a little disappointed when students come up to me and say, ma'am, we've sent 20 applications. I lost count of my application, student. I lost count. But with each rejection, I became more determined to better myself. Of course, I didn't apply with the same qualifications. Again, that's foolishness. I did something to upgrade myself, to learn new things. And then again, waited, to hear back from them. And when I heard finally, and it was a positive response, I got an offer from a jurisdiction where I didn't know a soul, where anyone I know knew no one there. And I'd never traveled there. I wasn't comfortable with the food, language. But what did I do? I was flexible and then made a way to Hong Kong. And that's been my best decision. So, yes, then I worked in another US law firm. I mean, that was my first US law firm experience. And of course, then Internship Bank happened again. I was flexible. I was open to new challenges. So that's pretty much what's shaped my career path. Yeah, Kostav, I hope that answers your question.
It definitely does. It most certainly does. And I tell you why, because every time I've asked my guests that this one particular question of what exactly was your experience like, and one of the very unique things that comes out of it is how very subjective and also how unique the experiences have been, irrespective of where they're practiced and how they've gotten into the practice. Yours is, for the first time I'm hearing this, such an honest and such a beautiful answer with respect to how the ability to actually go through the application process, to not discount ourselves in the race or in this competition, and actually let the consequence of our actions decide and actually go through the application process. And this is very fascinating because I am a final year law student, and when I listen to you, I do think that maybe I should have applied more. There was a hesitation that I perhaps subconsciously, unconsciously did not send out the applications, fearing the rejection because of whatever reasons that there were. And I think rejections at such a higher level, you yourself have shared this story. So I'm really curious, is this the culmination of all these ideas, all these experiences that then manifested into Internship Bank?
Okay, so Internship Bank, let me take a few steps back. So I don't know how to put this right, but as a corporate lawyer, I've always enjoyed what I do. And maybe that's the reason why I've been able to stick with doing what I do for over 13 years now, right? But I'll also be honest in saying that I never really felt by just doing corporate law work that I was able to make the difference, direct impact that I really sought to make in the society. Of course, I got in more money for big corporate houses, and maybe because many more people were employed, and maybe it got a little fame and name to India as a country, especially when I saw I had worked on headline making deals, and all of that was good. But I felt the impact that I was making through my full-time job was always more indirect than direct. And therefore, since my school days at Loreto in Darjeeling, I've always kept myself busy doing some side gig, just to satisfy my soul, be it, literacy programs, legal aid, you name it. Teaching has been my passion, something which I've continued even with full-time assignments, teaching students over weekends. And it was on one of these teaching sessions over a weekend that, and I've always believed in kind of trying to teach at lesser known colleges, just so that I feel my impact is more direct, for the time that I'm spending out there. And I had a few students come up to me and say how they struggled to get internships. And these were students I was teaching live. I was there for a couple of days and I knew how good they were. They were no less than, say, students from other better universities in terms of name and brand that I had taught earlier. So it did pain me, and I could identify myself. I was a first generation lawyer. As I said, NUJS was still building its brand name. We didn't even have a college infrastructure, like a building in the sense, when I joined NUJS. So I identified with what they said. And then a few students who were females came up to me, and they were not shy in telling me how they faced sexual harassment, rampant sexual harassment at the internships they were doing. And that honestly came as a very painful, horrific surprise to me. And along with that, having worked in London and Hong Kong, jurisdictions where you would think women are better represented, I can tell you that most often in the meetings I attended, the presentations I made, I was probably just one of the handful of women that was present in the room. And sometimes, and most of the times, I was the only one. So when these students came up to me and said what they told me, I actually couldn't sleep that night. Hand on heart, I couldn't, because I myself have been sexually assaulted. People who know me professionally know about that journey. That's another battle that I'm fighting at the side. I took up that battle 22 years after being sexually assaulted as a child. So there were many things that played, Kaustav, and I just couldn't sleep that night. I knew I had to do something. The talk had to end. And somewhere someone had to take note of this thing. For the first time, I also realized, and I was almost ashamed to realize it for the very first time, interns are very vulnerable. They are vulnerable because when they are interning, they are outside the university premises, meaning the university can say, hey, I'm not saying they say it, but it's easier for them to say that we can only look after students within our university premises. How do we monitor the safety of students outside, right? Secondly, interns are temporary in nature. So the organizations they go to intern for, of course, would you want to listen to or make changes for a temporary person who's probably just there for a month, at the most 3 months? Or would you want to side up with a person who's a permanent employee of yours, senior member, and bringing in the revenue to the firm? So I realized for the first time that interns were definitely perhaps more vulnerable than even, don't take me wrong, even the temporary worker in that permanent organization. And I knew I had to do something. These interns put up with sexual harassment simply because they were afraid of the gaping hole in their CV and the questions that would follow if they just left their internship midway. So here there were people putting up with a hostile environment for fear that because they came from lesser known colleges, they already have very limited opportunities, for fear of that gaping hole in that CV, which would cast or overshadow any other achievements they would have had previously. And it would make it doubly difficult for them to get another opportunity in future. And it was sad that our young lawyers who were just entering the profession had to put up with that. Couldn't sleep that night. And I knew I had to do something. These interns were even younger than my own sister. I have a sister 7 years younger to me. I was really shocked, so everything came together. And that's when I decided to start Internship Bank. I was still fully employed then. I did not need this for anything else, still well established in my profession. And I thought, why not devote my Saturdays, Sundays to perhaps creating a website, going and literally begging my contacts, my good friends, perhaps blackmailing them into giving me an opportunity to, have an intern in their organization. And that's how Internship Bank started. But with the platform, I wanted to deal with a few things, not just internships. Here, internship alone wasn't the problem. So firstly, I wanted to tell female lawyers, young female upcoming lawyers, that, hey, you don't have to put up with an internship. Maybe the internships advertised on Internship Bank are not all from tier 1 firms, but they are an internship nevertheless. So you will not have that gaping hole in your CV. So that was my first motto. And I'm being honest about this completely. That was why I started Internship Bank. The second thing I realized is that, the way I can perhaps ensure a safer environment is to place these young upcoming female lawyers with another senior women lawyer. I myself have worked with men. I've been blessed with wonderful male colleagues and wonderful male bosses who've nurtured me and have trained me into becoming the lawyer that I have. But it's not to say interns will not work, interns from Internship Bank will not work for male mentors. But I just felt that having that senior women in the league of reporting will just help women be more upfront should they ever face such a hostile environment. It's just how you are more comfortable talking to the same gendered person about such sensitive issues, right? And the third thing I wanted to do is I didn't have a female mentor for the longest period of time. You will be surprised to know I got my first female mentor in the year 2013, when I was already in the profession for a long period of time. And I realized having that mentor, see her talk in flesh and blood, you know, just having someone there in person made such a difference than reading about female mentors because they're so few in number, maybe in books or magazine covers. So I wanted Internship Bank to give young female lawyers that mentor, that female who they could emulate, that female who they could trust, who they could, run past their ideas, throw off their thoughts, and also realize this is not the first time perhaps the problems that they are facing has never been faced before. There are senior women before who faced it, who've handled it well. And maybe from their experience, these young interns are inspired and they have a mentor for life. So I try to combine internships, mentorships, trying to provide a safe working environment. And then everything came together and culminated into what we have and what we know as Internship Bank in mid-December 2019. Honestly, I never thought we would become the platform that we become. I mean, in less than 1.5 years, with little or no funding, with me only devoting part of my time to the platform, and with 4 part-time volunteers, we've come a long way. Over 14,000 followers on LinkedIn. We have our own YouTube channel where we mentor students, both male and females, on various upcoming topics that we feel would be relevant to them. And and we've secured over 208 internships. We started with only 12 advertised internships and now have over 100 live internship opportunities listed on our website. And we have many more exciting plans in the future, which I'm not going to disclose right now. I'm going to keep the suspense.
As much as I would like to know about that, I think, wow, I have to take this conversation forward. I almost got lost into that. It's just the privilege that I have, and I think anyone who's a cishet male has in a society, just smacks us in the face every time we hear about such incidences. And it's not new. It's something that we all are aware of. It's just that we just decide not to pay heed to it. As a conscious choice, we turn our heads around, and because very recently we saw that on LinkedIn there was some really brave women stepped up and called out the unsolicited, uncalled for behavior by seniors in law firms, which I think was brilliant as far as calling out was concerned. Extremely unfortunate that it happened. But there is only so much that I could have grasped or understood because I was clouded by this privilege that I obviously have. Now, when I talk to you about this, I can some sort of get a semblance of understanding as in how this actually works. So my question here is, obviously, when the legal fraternity starts talking about this and somehow there is an intense participation of everyone, and more so, the employers are also stepping up, and I've seen a lot of posts, they're stepping up and sort of offering advices or offering opportunities or whatever, like there are different kind of reactions that are coming through. What is your take on this recent development that has happened?
Okay, so Costa, first and foremost, I really want to convey to these young girls who've come forward with their stories, not just stories, mind you, but proof in hand. They are not making vague allegations. Let me tell you, it's a really brave thing to do. I know this because as I said, I was sexually assaulted when I was 14 years old, not once, multiple times over by my private tutor. And it took me 22 long years. It took me 22 long years to even tell someone about it. The first time I even talked about it to anyone was 22 years later. So you can well imagine the shame that one carries through it. It's just, I don't know why. In case of every other crime, be it robbery, theft, you don't hide it, right? The support comes to the person who has been robbed as opposed with the thief. But strange enough, the way our society has made it out to be, and I'm not just talking about India, I'm talking about the world. Strangely, when it comes to sexual assault, sexual harassment, and I'm not just talking about women out here, there are men too, who face different kind of abuse, and their trauma is many, many more times more than what women face. And I can tell you that. Strangely enough, we are so ready to jump and shame the victim, the survivor, as opposed to the perpetrator. What really surprised me was, of course, the trauma was so great for me personally that in law school, I skipped through sexual abuse and rape provisions. So, and all of you know me as a very confident, well-spoken woman, having worked for so many years in India and abroad, right? And imagine if I struggled to speak about something like that for so many years, how deep the trauma must have been. I have only started to heal right now, right? It took me a lot of courage and conviction to, I didn't just sit back. What I did was, again, called out my sexual assaulter. And everyone, I've heard so many people, and we'll deal with this separately, of telling, follow the legal course, file an FIR. I've done it. I have done it. And I got my sexual assaulter arrested after, as recently as October 2020, he got arrested. And of course, investigations are on right now. Still, the charge sheet is yet to be filed. The police are doing a wonderful job. We did manage to get incriminating evidence against him. The media has well covered the report, and I'm grateful for that. But the long and story of why I'm going back to my experience, and I'll shortly come to talking about the brave act of the interns themselves, is to tell all of you that going via the legal route is so difficult. In spite of the cooperation, in spite of the help, in spite of the wonderful work and support I've received from everyone, be it from the police, be it from my lawyers, be it from my friends, I have a very supportive husband. It has not been easy for me emotionally, financially, and, it's a lengthy process. In India, it's no surprise that sometimes the trial goes on for 8 years, even at the trial court level. Then you have all the appellate stages. We are all lawyers. We know what we are talking about here. So what I'm trying to tell you is that what the interns have done has given them an immediate recourse. They have called out. They've acted as a whistleblower and have prevented many more women from being victimized by the same situation. I think it's your duty to call out such individuals, especially when you have a proof in hand. If you don't have, of course, it's not right to go out there and call someone. And I'm totally with that. But when you have a proof in hand, and I've seen the reactions come through. There's been one set of reactions where, of course, everyone like yourself and me, we've said you've done the right thing. Whereas there are others who are like, no, this will lead a floodgates of allegations, blah, blah, blah. Where do we stop and all of that? But my question to you is, how do we, where interns, they are financially challenged, they're not independent at all right now. They're still dependent on their parents for financial support. This is the time when they are supposed to concentrate on their career. They are supposed to concentrate on getting a job or getting that internship they want. How do you propose they find the time without the standing they have? How do you propose they find the resources to fight a litigation that could take that long? So in the absence of, guaranteeing the interns a speedy trial, or in the absence of helping them with financial resources, I don't think we as a community have the right to tell them to, not use a social platform to bring these people in the know-how. They've really done a service, and what they've done is they've stopped other people, maybe who are indulging in these kind of acts, to step back, to know that women speak now, to know that youngsters of today are not going to be what I was. I know how much of courage it took me. These youngsters, without the financial resources standing, they've gone out to make a point. They've said, we will not tolerate this no matter what. And I clap and I applaud all of you for doing that. You cannot expect an intern who has no power, no standing, to get more of an immediate result, other than, say, go via professional platforms. And for others who are shouting and crying that, hey, this could lead to floodgates of, a lot of complaints. If you've done nothing wrong, trust me, you have nothing to worry, because these interns are not there to get you. They are there to make a career, to have their own right in the professional field. And trust me, I'm going through this. It's so difficult to prove something that has happened to you, given the criminal justice system we have. It's not easy for someone to go out there and make allegations and substantiate it. If you've done nothing wrong, it will all crumble through. Even if you've done something wrong, trust me, the measure that the prosecution has to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt is a very, very high standard. Considering that our litigations go on for 15 years, 10 years, a person really has to have that grit and courage to go through and invest a lot of resources to get that conviction of the sexual assaulter, something that, someone arbitrarily bringing complaints against you will never want to invest that kind of time and resources. So for those of you who've done nothing wrong, don't be scared. There are very high standards to meet, very high things at stake, and so that's about it. Kaustav, sorry if I fumbled and mumbled a bit, because it's quite emotional for me. Yeah,
I'm really struggling. I almost never struggle with conversations. The reason why I'm struggling is because I do not think that it is extremely appropriate, or perhaps rather paradoxical, of me to actually sit and be a part of this conversation where I'm also contributing to it, because I think it is important for people like me who are, as I repeat once again, cis-het privileged people who can actually sit back and should actually listen to these conversations more so than to be a part of it. And that should be the modus operandi. But there's absolutely no debate. There's no argument that exists against whatever you've said. Even if there was, I think when you've said it multiple times, that these women have come out with proofs that there has been an activity which was very unprofessional and did have sexual color, which was to be considered as an advance. And it was very clear. There is no question about it. The repercussions are not that strong. The repercussions are not that there is a criminal. Obviously, the criminal justice system is to a great extent near impossibility for anyone who's, let's say, financially challenged, like most of the interns are. Yes. One very interesting observation that a dear friend of mine made was that how intense this disparity is, that most of these professional gurus that we see on LinkedIn who keep telling us that law students should network, they should reach out, they should mail, they should drive in cold emails and reach out to the seniors. They don't understand. And what I also very recently, unfortunately, understood was it's very difficult for women and LGBTQI people to actually go through this process of networking, because they are not met with the exact same response that we privileged people are, like the cishet males are. And they have to go through those unwarranted advances, those really disgusting responses that people get. So networking, for example, very basic of a characteristic of a legal profession, is not easy for everyone. It's not even available as an option for everyone, let alone it being easy. So I think when we look at this and we somehow juxtapose it with other arguments that come up, that this is perhaps because of a demand supply problem, that there are so many interns, there is so less demand, that does not justify any of these actions under any circumstances. I mean, this is just very boggling to me. So I'll leave this space for you, ma'am, like whatever you believe is the response.
Yeah, so the very nature of sexual harassment, abuse, assault is the fact that it will always be a he says versus she says scenario, given that all of these crimes happen behind the scene. No one is going to come on camera and sexually abuse you or sexually assault you, right? And I'll take up your question directly, but what I want to tell you is that just know that it takes a lot for someone who's yet to even start their career and run the chance of being seen as a troublemaker. These people will just not come in the front and make allegations against senior people just like that. So that's something to think about. It must have reached to a level of such great heights that it came to the point where they simply said enough is enough. So think of what it must have taken for, it's even difficult for me, trust me, with the standing I have, it's very difficult for me to even bring something like this to everyone's forefront. This is the topic that I'm openly speaking about, perhaps for the second time. It's not an easy topic even for me to deal with, right? So always remember, it will be a he says or she says a case. I've heard a few male come up to me and say, and the problem is exasperated in the case of sexual harassment, abuse, assault. The fact that sometimes, you'll often be said, hey, I didn't mean it that way. Hey, you're being too conservative. You're being too sensitive. So these are the things that come up when anyone tries to protest and you are told maybe you are overthinking, right? And the blame is somehow put back in your court. So I often have men asking me, so Debs, do we never hug our colleagues? Do we never crack jokes? Or what is the appropriate line? If you don't want anyone to say anything that you wouldn't want your wife, your girlfriend, your sister, your daughter to be said, the content as well as the manner in which it's said, it's not always the content, it's the manner in which it is said, don't go ahead and do it. If you don't have that kind of common sense as to how to deal with another human being, I really don't think you deserve to be holding the position, the senior position that you hold. If you're in doubt, take the conservative route. Right? Everyone's comfort level is different. So please remember that a joke that might be okay with someone else may not be okay with the other person. And it's okay for every person, be it a man or a woman, to have a different breadth of the circumference of their comfort level. Me having a narrower circumference does not in any way make you a worse of person for having a broader comfort zone. So if you have to tread on the side of caution, just be conservative. Don't crack that joke that you think could be interpreted two ways, right? Don't send that message that you think can be interpreted two ways. How difficult is it? You don't go about sending good morning messages to your male interns the way you do with your female interns. What makes you think it is okay to send it to a female intern? She's a professional in her own right. She's there to work for you. Treat her the way you would treat any other respectable employee of your organization. Don't make things difficult for her. And honestly speaking, if you don't have the brains to figure out what is appropriate and inappropriate, I honestly think you shouldn't be in the position that you are in. So that's first thing. The second thing about this imbalance, about, it is difficult for women to network. Because if you come across as smart and confident, people often take that to mean that you're a modern woman. I don't know what they mean by that, but they think you have easy virtues if you're a modern woman. No, that's not the case. The way I dress, the way I talk reflects me as a person. It does not in any way give you the right to think that that I'm an easygoing woman. I don't know where that notion came from. And it's time that society starts acknowledging it. If a woman attends a networking party, she's just there for networking on a professional basis. LinkedIn is a professional platform. I see so many messages pop out where they're very inappropriate messages, sometimes leaning towards dating, sometimes leaning towards a casual relationship. That has to stop. If you don't know how to use LinkedIn, you shouldn't be there, And if you don't have that common sense or knowledge, I don't know what to say further, right? So yes, networking for women can be difficult. If I were to just reach out and say hi to someone, that could give that person, for whatever reason, an impression that, hey, she's perhaps a woman with virtue. It is difficult. But having said that, there has to be a generation of women who take that chance. Unfortunately, it's us now and the younger generation, and we have to break it. It is breakable, guys. So just know it is breakable. It's walkable. It's going to be a difficult, narrow road. But trust me, there's no fun walking on the wider road. Walk the narrow road. You will have a story to tell people, and you will be really proud that you walked that road. Keep your message for request of networking professional. If that's misinterpreted, just move on to the next person. I'm telling you, there are good men also. One appeal to the interns is that don't start doubting every man that comes your way, please. Except for a couple of untoward men that have come my way, I have been blessed to have a very good supportive environment. That's been my personal experience. I haven't let my horrific experience, make myself in a way. I don't know how to put this. I have not let my experience tarnish the image of men and stop receiving the help and support that I can from the male fraternity. I haven't. And that's my request to all of you. Don't let, images of a few men tarnish the image of the entire league of men out there. There are good men too. And trust me, just move on. Out of the 20, maybe, I'm not saying this is the case, okay, Kaustav, but I'm saying out of the 20, there will definitely be 2 who will take you on board and give you that mentorship that you are seeking out. Be professional from your end, be firm, send a clear message that I'm here only for professional reasons. And I'm here to just talk about my job or my internship. You're not there for anything else. If you're uncomfortable with anything, make it known then and there. If the person respects it, well, good. If the person doesn't respect it, just back off. Don't overthink. If something has made you uncomfortable, that's your gut speaking. Those are your principles and values speaking. Respect yourself and respect that gut feeling. And as I said, comfort level can be of any circumference. I could be okay with a certain joke. Someone else cannot. I could be okay with an offer for a drink outside office. Someone else may not, and that doesn't give anyone the right to judge any person. So to the people who are reaching out for networking, be professional. Immediately say so if you're uncomfortable with any message, with any behavior, so that person knows for sure what your comfort level is. And for people on the other side, simple guidance. Would you have liked anyone to talk to your wife, girlfriend, daughter, sister like that? If not, you have the answer. And if you still can't figure it out, I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you. As regards the number of people joining the profession, it's an appeal to students. Don't just join in colleges for a degree. Do your research. I know it can be very tempting to be a lawyer, and most of us are lured by the 6-7 figure salary that we see people receiving. But just know that they are a handful of people, even in top law schools. Not everyone gets that 7-6 figure salary. Not everyone gets to work abroad. Okay, so do make a realistic assessment and don't just join any college. Please don't do that, because you will not get the help that you need to really take off to start that career. Yeah.
Right. And I think when I hear this, my first immediate reaction is when people, whenever we talk about people who make such advances or who are not clear, and you suggested that it's much better. I think the entire segment, only just this segment, should be publicized and circulated on LinkedIn as a mandatory course. Everyone should go through this to know that if there is a confusion, if there is any coloring of your remarks, please stick to your conservative approach. Do not send out unwarranted messages, at least on the professional platforms. But more so, I think the idea of educating this the responsibility is not of the women. I think it's everyone's responsibility to self-educate themselves. We have enough resources outside. Internet's it's filled with everything that we want to read and to gain that level of information. So I don't think it's the responsibility of the women or certain organizations, certain people to actually go out and start teaching people, please don't text this or text that. You should self-educate yourself. If you're running a law firm, might as well be aware of all these things.
Absolutely. I absolutely stand by what I said. Maybe this has been my most honest interview, Costa, on the point, but it doesn't take a lot to figure out what is right and what is wrong. And if you're struggling with it, there is something wrong in your value system or your upbringing. There's something terribly wrong. And I'll never shy away from saying that. What I want to share with you, Costa, is that it's been 1.5 years, a little more than 1.5 years that I started Internship Bank. And I want to take a little pat on my back for saying this self-praise. So far at Internship Bank, hand on heart, I've not had a single complaint about sexual harassment for the interns that we've placed, whereas I've made it very clear to every intern that I've placed that should there be any problem, it's not just sexual harassment, just reach out to me and I'll personally take that on board, because we have a zero tolerance. I have a zero tolerance for anything of this reason. So I feel we've taken a small, tiny step to what we set out to do. All our internships are curated. We don't just advertise any internships that come our way. I try and do with my limited resources. I'm not saying I do a full background check. That's impossible, because an organization is never run by one person, right? So, but I do take whatever initiative I can to make sure that my interns are safe. And it does give me a feeling of joy to know that so far I've not really had any such communication from my interns. And there've been many organizations that we've repeatedly sent interns to. So yeah,
Wonderful.
we're getting there. We're getting there to cleansing the system. I can tell you that. Yes.
I think with that principle of actually reaching that spot of making the workplace safer for everyone, I would love to ask you this question on a rather pronged aspects. First is, what can these employers or these firms or these organizations do to make the workplace safer for every participant, may it be an intern, primarily intern, because that is the theme of our conversation. And in subsequence of this, I'll ask you my second question.
No, don't keep the suspense. Tell me your second question.
Right. All right. So my second question is obviously, what is it that, because this also came up while this entire issue was up on LinkedIn, that what is it that the legal interns can do? And not just female interns or not just interns of particular identity, but everyone can do to perhaps make this entire process of internship safer for not just the workplace, but for everyone, participative and inclusive for everyone. So yeah, these are the two-pronged questions that I have.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I think we all have a duty. Everyone, not just in the legal fraternity. I mean, we as individuals, no matter in what professional field we are engaged in, is to make that particular work environment safe. You cannot have, you cannot produce brilliant minds or productive workers if they don't feel safe. If I don't feel safe to stay in an office working till 1 and 2 a.m., how do you expect me to deliver the work product that you want out of me, right? So first and foremost, I think it's organizations should send out a clear message that, untoward behavior like this will never be tolerated. It needs to be not just conveyed, but enforced. So, I genuinely feel, you do away with a few employees for such untoward behavior. It sends a clear message to whichever organization that's enforcing that we are a zero tolerant organization. What that organization does is, of course, maybe, suffers a loss in terms of revenue that would have otherwise come from that employee. But overall, in the future, that organization stands to gain in goodwill and reputation and have the best workers join them. So organizations really need to understand that, whatever disadvantage they might have by, say, doing away with that brilliant employee, permanent senior employee, it's just temporary. No one is not replaceable in this world. They will definitely, you will start uploading. You become an industry a trendsetter, a path breaker. People want to join you. People want to send their daughters to your organization to work because of the good image that you have built. And this is a message that needs to be sent across, even if you pay these people a little less. And that's not like I'm trying to propagate, but what I'm trying to say is other things of your organization become much more attractive to the future generation. And you want to work for such organizations. We want to be associated with organizations that we pride ourselves with, right? So absolutely educate your employees. Secondly, make sure you enforce it. Just education without enforcement will not generate the kind of confidence that future generations would need to join you. And neither will it, create the fear, for lack of a better word, amongst people who have such propensities, right? So that's that I would say is the most important thing. Secondly, I think glass door policy, and take complaints or sexual harassment seriously. There will always be he says, she says. Trust me, it takes a lot in a person to come up and open up about something that is so sensitive and so personal to that person. That person is risking their career. That person is risking and running the risk of ruining their reputation. I did that. I ran the risk of ruining the reputation that I've built up for myself for so many years. But I knew I had to do this because there's so much of silence around these topics. Everybody knows it's happening, but for whatever reason, we try and put it under the carpet and move on. And surprisingly and sadly, we all seem to have grown very comfortable doing it. And I knew in my case, because I got information that my sexual assaulter was continuing to assault other minors, I knew I had to stand and speak up. I just had to do it, even if that came at the cost of many other things. I have a very supportive family, friend circle. People have gone out of the way to, support me in my cause. But just remember that it is very difficult to be re-victimized each time that you have to recount the story and go ahead. And as far as I know, and of course, this is hearsay, when you bring about sexual harassment charges, you have to repeat your story to many people within the organization. People could start seeing you as a troublemaker and start dissociating from yourself. And, so it's not a very easy and a comfortable place to be in. So people do listen. Because if the story gets out that you're an organization which does not take these matters seriously, in the future, women are speaking up, young girls are speaking up. You are now done almost with the generation that kept quiet. You are done with the generation that was me, who kept quiet for 22 years. So I'm kudos to those interns once again for standing up, for being able to tell their stories so many times over to so many people, and for generally calling out and standing a good chance of being seen as a troublemaker. Yeah.
Perfect. I have zero idea how to somehow end this conversation. By the way, for all the viewers, I do have a list of questions with me. I don't know how to end this conversation, but I think we've covered mostly what we envisaged with what we wanted to talk about under this theme. And it's been a wonderful, beautiful conversation, so honest and so eye-opening. That's for sure. I keep saying this, but once again, for me and for anyone who comes from a position of privilege, it is very important to know about this, listen to it again and again, so that we don't grow callous to all these activities that go around us, but be very aware, sensitive, and be there for each other. And only then I believe that we'll be able to make this situation better. But that's it. That's all that my contribution to this episode is. I've been here as a listener, I've
Kaustubh,
been listening, and I've been learning. Yes, ma'am, please.
one last point from me, and maybe this is my concluding message to everyone out there. Don't be silent. Break the silence. It's so important to break the silence, because men like these, even women, there are women who create hostile environment for men. Your silence will only perpetuate this and continue it from happening. So if you want to break the cycle, break the silence, because persons like this, they really live off the silence, which we have so well cemented over the years. Time for all of us to completely shatter and break the silence.
Wonderful, ma'am. I hope everyone watches this. I hope this reaches the people who should see this video in whatever capacity possible. And I'm really grateful that you could take time off your very busy schedule and sit down with me for this conversation. Before we wrap this up, ma'am, although you've said that you've given out your closing remarks, but I would still request you if there's anything else that you would like to share with our viewers before we wrap this up.
No, nothing from my side. But if there's any way I can help out anyone, through the healing process, because healing is as important, and we humans are different in nature. No one is identical. We heal in different ways. If you think I can help you anyway, I'm not claiming to be a professional therapist or anything, but if through my experience, I can help you understand either the legal process, if you want to follow that route, or if you feel I can help you heal through, other means, like, how do you deal with the trauma? How do you process it? It's not easy. I still have nightmares and flashbacks even till this day. And I know what I go through when I have those. So if there's any way I can help you out, feel free to drop me a message and we can get talking.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I will make it a point that I enlist everything that we've talked about, all the links to either Internship Bank or to your LinkedIn down in the description. So if there's anyone who wants to reach out to ma'am, please feel free to do so. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for this wonderful,
Thanks,
wonderful
Kaustubh.
conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining.